In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 11 high estrogen foods and products that are destroying your manhood. Okay, high levels of estrogen are the primary cause behind why the majority of men these days are softer in their emotions, in their bodies, in the way that they're showing up in their lives. A large part of the reason is because estrogen levels, the ratio of your estrogen to your testosterone levels is completely out of balance. Okay, this is not to say that estrogen is not important. It serves a reproductive function in both men and women, but the reality is that because we are exposed to so many of these artificial estrogens in our environment, in our food, in the products that we use, it's causing this hormone balance to get out of whack, whereby estrogen levels are getting higher than testosterone. And this is why the average man today has less than half the testosterone levels of the average man from just a few decades ago. Okay, so I've got this list over here. I'm going to run through it right now, but there are 11 products on this list. Some of them are food, some of them are products, and understanding and getting an awareness of these will help you take steps in the right direction towards avoiding them and eventually eliminating them, so that you can show up in your personal power and purpose as a man. Okay, because I talk a lot about spiritual awakening, about raising your consciousness and all of these topics, but the reality is that if your body is out of balance, then it will be impossible for you to actually reach your peak potential, because your body, like they say, is the temple of the soul. Okay, it's the temple which you must cherish, you must relish, you must worship, really, so that it's functioning at its peak capacity, so that it can tap into all of these different areas that we can reach higher towards. Okay, so the first food on this list, actually it's not a food, but it's basically to avoid high estrogen foods. Okay, so there was a bunch of researchers at the University of Toronto. They took a bunch of commonly consumed foods from grocery stores, and they listed them out based on their phytoestrogen content. Okay, now phyto means plant, estrogen is plant estrogen. So there were a bunch of foods, and the two that ranked highest on this list were first and foremost flaxseed. Okay, now flaxseed has been shown to reduce testosterone levels in a couple of studies, but these studies were not totally definitive. Okay, for example, in one of them, they found that consumption of flaxseed lowered testosterone levels, but at the same time, they went ahead and put the subjects on a low-fat diet. And if you already know that high-fat diet is very important for testosterone, because fat provides cholesterol, which is a building block of testosterone. And if you are not consuming fat, then testosterone levels will fall as a result. So just to be clear, that the studies are not entirely clear on how flaxseed actually affects a man's testosterone levels. I can link out to a bunch of studies below, but there are some anecdotal evidence that shows that there was one guy, actually a university student, who was doing a case study on himself, who found that his testosterone levels more than doubled after he stopped consuming so much flaxseed. Okay, so whether flaxseed has a significant impact on testosterone levels is not entirely clear based on the research, but this Canadian study did find that flaxseed has actually has the highest amount of phytoestrogen content compared to every other product out there. Okay, personally, I do not consume flaxseed. I never will, but the choice is up to you based on the research. Okay, now the second food that was ranking after flaxseed is soy. Okay, now you already know this whole phenomenon of soy boys around who are getting feminized because of exposure or too much estrogen. And soy was actually popularized because a large portion of the population in Okinawa, Japan, which are some of the longest living people on the planet, were consuming soy. Okay, but the majority of soy which we have at the supermarket is GMO. Okay, it's genetically modified, and Soy Joy, which is the biggest company that produces soy in the Western world, has been basically putting soy into every single product that we consume. And this GMO soy is very different from the soy which these Okinawans were consuming in Japan. Okay, so keep that in mind as well, that this genetically modified soy is destroying your hormone balance, and soy is basically in every single food that you consume. So just in general, avoid processed foods as close as you can get to the source of the food. Like, as much less steps there are from where the food is coming from and where it comes to the grocery store, the less steps there are involved, the better the food will be for you, and the less negative effects it will have on your body as well. Okay, So those are the two high estrogen foods. You can check out the study in its entirety so that you can go over the list of other phytoestrogenic foods as well. But these are the two main ones that you should gain an awareness on, okay? Now the second food which I want to talk about is grains and cereals, okay? We eat so many grains, we eat so many cereals, and other than the fact that they contain gluten, which has been a major health epidemic causing inflammation in people, but grains and cereals actually contain a yeast that secretes an estrogenic fungus called zearalenone, okay, ZEA for short, and ZEA causes reproductive function, okay, reproductive dysfunction, okay. Studies are clear on the fact that it destroys your reproductive function in both men and women, and grains and cereals are not the only thing that contain ZEA, all right, because the fact is that the large portion of conventionally raised animals are consuming grains as well. I was reading somewhere, just as a side note, that the bull or the cow population in the US consumes 5 times the amount of grains than the entire population of the US, okay? So the ZEA chemical actually finds its way into conventionally farmed meats as well. So another fact that you should watch out for. So grains and cereals avoid in general, and then if you can avoid factory farmed meats and conventionally raised meats, that will be beneficial for you as well, okay? So as this dog is barking in the background, I don't know if you can hear it, but the next food that you need to watch out for is conventionally grown fruits and vegetables, okay? Because the reality is that a large part of these conventionally grown fruits and veggies are sprayed with herbicides, and a large portion of the herbicides, actually like the second most used herbicide in the US is Atrazine, okay? Now Atrazine is very feminizing. In some studies, it found that it completely demasculated frogs. I don't know why they did the studies on frogs, but that's what they found. And ZEA has been banned in a lot of countries, but in the US, it is the second most, like I said, used herbicide that there is, okay? So it's said that 80 million pounds of herbicides of atrazine are used every single year by farmers in the US. So if you're consuming conventionally farmed fruits and veggies, like if you can't afford organic, because I do know that they are a bit more expensive, then just make sure to wash them before you consume them, okay? And obviously the optimal decision would be to go for organic produce. But if you are consuming conventionally, then just be aware that you should wash them and get rid of the herbicide sprays that they have on them, okay? Now the next thing on this list is artificial food colors, okay? Now these are basically added to a lot of foods, a lot of processed foods in general, which you should be avoiding. But if you are consuming them, because artificial food colors are not only in like candies and sodas and treats and chocolates, but they also find their way into quote-unquote health foods like salad dressing and salmon fillets or chicken fillets. Like they add these artificial food colors. So like I said before, as close as you can get to the source of the food, the less processed it will be and the better effects it will have on your body and the less negative effects it will have on your body as well, okay? So artificial food colors, like there's red number 3, which is very estrogenic. And not only is it estrogenic, but it damages your DNA as well, okay? So always keep an eye out for the ingredients label. If you read red number 3 on there, if you find any estrogenic chemicals, for example, like artificial food colors, then just keep an awareness that this is something that you should not even be in your diet, all right? And a recent study actually found that 43% of all foods in the supermarket contain artificial food colors, all right? So obviously the fact is that if you just completely cut out your consumption of processed foods, then that would be the most beneficial. But if you continue to consume them anyway and go against this advice, then just keep an eye out on the ingredient label and at least know what you are putting inside the temple of your body, okay? Now these are the main 4 foods that I wanted to talk to you about, okay? Artificial food colors, conventionally grown fruits and veggies, grains and cereals, and then soy and flax. And then the next step is actually what is seeping into our personal care products, into our environment that might be seeping into us without our awareness, okay? So the first thing that you need to watch out for is standard bathroom hand soaps, okay? Hand soaps contain alkyphenols, okay? Alkyphenols are short known as apes, and these are associated with infertility in men, okay? Now the reality is that a large portion of these hand soaps don't actually have alkyphenols listed on the ingredients list, but again, if you can get as close to organic personal care products, the less negative effects they will have on your body as well. Okay, so standard bathroom hand soaps. The next thing you need to watch out for is lavender products. Okay, now lavender is perhaps the most commonly used plant product in personal care products because it has that smell. It can induce like feelings of relaxation as well, but lavender is actually associated with gynecomastia. All right, gynecomastia is the development of male breast tissue whereby you have these tits as a man. I personally have experienced gynecomastia in the past. I still have a bit of breast tissue, but I've been able to go through strategies and techniques to reduce the visibility of it. Okay, I'll make another video about that coming up as well. I just wanted to get the right exercises that I could demonstrate, so I'll film that hopefully today for you as well. I know that you're waiting for this video. One of you guys has been commenting a lot on wanting to see a video on gyno, so obviously just avoid lavender products. That's the first step for you. So next product is cheap sunscreen. Okay, sunscreen contains two ingredients in particular, which is BP and 4-MBC, and these are highly estrogenic. Okay, and the worst part is that when we put these sunscreens on our skin, then ultraviolet light is actually mixing with it, and this binds these ingredients into the estrogen receptors, which means that they actually stay fused to these estrogen receptors over a long period of time, which means that you could put on sunscreen at once and you could experience the estrogenic effects into the long term as well. Okay, so watch out for cheap sunscreens. I personally don't use sunscreen because I'm blessed with this darker complexion, so I don't get burnt. But if you are using sunscreen, then just make sure that you are opting for something that is organic, something that you have scanned the ingredients for and gotten rid of any of those alarming substances and estrogenic compounds, which could actually end up doing more harm than the good that the sunscreen is doing from protecting you from getting burned. Okay, now the next estrogenic product on this list is conventional deodorant. Okay, all this Axe, all this Nivea, all this Old Spice deodorant that you're using contain parabens. Okay, and parabens are highly estrogenic and they damage male reproductive function. This has been found in a lot of studies, and the fact is that our underarms actually are the most sensitive area of skin, which are so open and able to actually take in these ingredients and these estrogenic substances. So just cut out conventional deodorants. Okay, I've been talking about this for a while now, but if you are still using conventional deodorants, whether that's Axe, Nivea, Old Spice, these most popular ones that we see, then just get rid of it. Okay, and if you are struggling with your body odor, the first thing you should consider is what you are putting inside your body, because more often than not, it's these toxins that are being released from your body and causing this smell. But if you are still, obviously you don't want to smell bad, but I would recommend that you mix up a little bit of baking soda with a little bit of water, like a few drops of water, and just scrub that over your underarms. You won't have any odor anymore. Okay, and you can also mix it with some coconut oil, rub it under your arms, and that will be perfectly fine for you to not only get rid of the odor, actually smell good as well, and you will not be damaging your body through these estrogens. Okay, now the next product on this list is of course plastics. So now a lot of guys have been talking about this, and you know, there's in plastics there is phthalates and BPA. Okay, now both of them are highly estrogenic. They damage your DNA, they damage your reproductive function, and the fact is that when we have plastic bottles, they're on this table right now, and they're exposed to sunlight, then those parabens actually seep into the water, and then you're drinking it, and then it just has even more damaging effects. So definitely watch out for that as well. And just in general, avoid plastics and their association with food. Like, opt for glass whenever you can, but I know that plastics are impossible to avoid altogether. So like, just be aware on the fact that they are estrogenic, and even some plastics that say BPA free, there's like another ingredient in plastic known as BPS, and that seems to have the same estrogenic effects as BPA. So watch out for that as well. And the next product on this list is a bit controversial, but it's weed. Okay, now weed has been associated with a lot of feminizing effects on the male body, like gynecomastia, but those studies were not as definitive. Okay, the most definitive study that I found was actually performed in Denmark, where they found that men that used marijuana within the last few months actually had 28% lower sperm concentrations than men that did not use marijuana. Okay, now personally this was a bit of a shocker for me because I am a recreational user of weed, but luckily I'm in Bali right now where they don't have weed, and even if you do use it, you get a death sentence. So that's like a good enough reason for me to stay away from it, and I don't consume it when I'm here. But just to keep an eye out that if you are smoking too much, like, it can damage your sperm cells, it can damage your testosterone, and it can lead to the development of gynecomastia. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. And then finally, this is the most insidious, and this is the tap water supply. Okay, so the fact is that 100 million women around the world are using contraceptives, all right, EE2, to avoid getting pregnant. And when they are pissing it out, it's actually getting mixed with the water supply. Now, does this have a high estrogenic effect from consuming the water? This is not entirely clear, but traces of EE2, which is the estrogenic chemical in these contraceptives, has been found in the water supply in many countries or many states around the USA. All right, now a lot of other countries have not done studies on this, but the fact is that if you can opt for spring water or a clear source of water or reverse osmosis water or mineral water rather than drinking from the tap, then you will be better off in terms of the negative effects that this will have on your body. Okay, so I just wanted to shoot this video on the 11 high estrogen foods and products that you might be consuming that are so popular these days and that are causing this damaging of your masculinity. But of course, if you increase your awareness, you can go on to take the steps to reduce your exposure to them. Okay, so if you learned something new from this video, click a bunch of the buttons below and leave a comment letting me know what is the one thing from this list that you will start avoiding right now. Leave a comment below and let me know about that. But with all that being said, this has been Saleem, and I will see you in the next video.